The Architect of Shadows, Extended Story Edition. A fictional story. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, or governments is purely coincidental. Tamar Netanyahu was born beneath a shadow. From her earliest memories, silence was never absence. It was orchestration. Carefully rehearsed quiet, maintained by fear, discipline, and design. She grew up in a household that never said the truth out loud. Her father, Ido, had once been a celebrated neurosurgeon and political essayist, a man with fire in his veins and clarity in his words. But over the years, that fire dimmed. His writings became rarer, his silences longer, especially when his older brother, Benjamin, was mentioned. Uncle Benjamin was a name spoken like a spell and feared like a curse. When he visited, servants cleaned the house until it sparkled. Conversations shifted to neutral topics. Tamar, even as a child, knew there was a presence around him that made people change. It wasn't respect, it was control. She remembered asking her father why people seemed afraid of him. Ido had only whispered, because truth is dangerous when it's been trained to kneel. By her late 20s, Tamar had carved her own path. On the surface, she became a high-ranking Israeli diplomat in Europe, fluent in 6 languages, fluent in the art of disarming charm. But behind the silk suits and rehearsed statements, she carried a private rebellion. She never used her last name if she could help it. Never invoked the privilege that came with being part of that legacy. Then the package arrived. It was anonymous, no return address. A simple manila envelope slid under her door late at night in Brussels. Inside was a single USB drive labeled SR Operation Phase 2. At first, she hesitated to open it. But the curiosity, the compulsion, the instinct she inherited from her father drove her to insert the drive into her encrypted laptop. What she saw shook her. The files contained sensitive documents, transcripts, and internal communications from multiple intelligence agencies. References to joint operations between Israeli, American, and Russian military units in locations that officially didn't exist. But one file stopped her breath. Kirbet al-Dir, Civilian Disruption Simulation. Objective: observe panic response and international media latency. Attached were satellite photos. Before, families in a village square. After, rubble and bodies. Stamped with a signature. B. Netanyahu. Tamar didn't sleep that night, or the next. Then, a second message came, this time in paper, slipped into the lining of a box of Belgian chocolates she never ordered. It was a coordinate, a date, a time, midnight. Come alone. Do not be followed. She arrived in the rain. The location was a small garden beside an abandoned rail station in Liège. A woman stood beneath the arch of a crumbling stone wall. I'm Mira Cohen, the woman said, and we've been waiting for you. Mira had been presumed dead 6 years earlier, after whistleblowing a secret brain mapping experiment conducted on immigrant children. Her suicide had sparked minor protests, then vanished from media entirely. But Mira hadn't died. She had gone underground. She was now the leading voice of an underground network called The Pale Flame. A group of former analysts, AI developers, journalists, and defectors united in a single goal: expose the shadow empire Benjamin Netanyahu had built under decades of war rhetoric and security doctrine. Tamar joined them. For over a year, Tamar and Mira worked in darkness. They traveled through Istanbul, Sarajevo, Lisbon, and Rabat. They uncovered operations named things like Peace Forge, Olive Cage, and the Golem Thesis. They found biometric experiments in rural schools, vote manipulation algorithms tested in African elections, drone footage of covert military strikes authorized without Knesset approval. And they discovered the Bastion Network, an elite surveillance AI that tracked not just threats, but potential dissidents years before they acted. "We don't fight rebellions," Netanyahu said in one intercepted recording. "We plant fears before they flower." Operation Leviticus was their plan, a full-spectrum leak. Not a simple wiki-style dump, but a narrative experience, a coordinated data release wrapped in documentaries, short films, simulated footage, confessionals from insiders, and AI-enhanced reconstructions. They wanted the world to not just read the truth, but feel it. But there were risks. 2 Pale Flame members disappeared in early testing phases. Mira received a severed fingertip in the mail. Tamar's father, Ido, was interrogated by internal security under suspicion of spiritual extremism. Still, they moved forward. The launch date, Yom Kippur, 2025. The leak hit the world like a meteor. It began with a live stream of Tamar in silhouette, reading aloud the names of all victims from operations authorized through the Bastion network. The stream cut into Israeli and American news simultaneously, overriding live TV feeds. Then came the files. They flooded the darknet, public forums, school websites, pirated movie files, even Starbucks Wi-Fi login pages. The world watched Netanyahu discussing with European weapons manufacturers how to prolong low-intensity wars for supply chain continuity. Documents showing deliberate collapse of ceasefires to trigger emergency military budgets. Evidence of blackmail on foreign officials using deepfake sexual content. The final nail. A personal diary entry from Netanyahu's encrypted cloud storage. They don't want truth. They want the illusion of choice. So I give them choices between my versions of control. The backlash was seismic. Thousands took to the streets in Tel Aviv, Washington, D.C., Berlin, and Seoul. The Knesset was suspended. 2 cabinet ministers resigned. The UN declared a week of mourning for those killed in strategic simulations. And Netanyahu vanished. No farewell speech, no televised resignation. Gone. Tamar went underground. Mira disappeared again. But the movement didn't stop. The pale flame became a symbol. Hackers used their icon, a flickering candle wrapped in thorns, to claim new leaks. A street artist in Paris painted Tamar's silhouette on the side of the Eiffel Tower. A protester in Chile renamed her newborn daughter Tamarine. In Iran, the government tried to spin the leak as Zionist implosion, but young Iranians began sharing pale flame clips with subtitles, quoting them during demonstrations. The silence had ruptured. Epilogue. 3 years later, in the remains of Khirbet al-Dair, an olive grove was replanted by volunteers from 17 countries. At the center stood a stone monolith, etched in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. The truth is not a bomb, it is a mirror, and the brave do not flinch. Underneath, someone had carved 2 initials, D and Dart. Netanyahu was never seen again, but whispers persisted that he lived under Russian asylum, that he orchestrated wars through proxies, that he tried to start again, but no system he built could survive the light once ignited by his own blood. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, or governments is purely coincidental.